In today's video, we are breaking down the possible story of GTA 6 based on Trailer 2, screenshots and GTA 6 website. We are gonna begin with Trailer 2 and then we'll try to connect the screenshots to some moments to make out the story. But before we start, I want to say that everything in this video is just speculation. We don't know the story and we won't know until something happens, maybe a leak which is not good or the release of the game. And the biggest reason why I can't make out the whole story is heavily based on the fact that Rockstar is intentionally making it really hard for us to understand what story is, because they are messing the pieces up in random order. They even can use some animations in some scenes that are meant to be played in the whole other cutscene, and we saw that in Red Dead Redemption 2 as well. So it's nothing new for Rockstar to make us go crazy trying to understand what is the story like in the game. So let's begin. In the very first shot of the trailer, as you can see, we see Jason in what seems to be the first safe house. And we can see Brian pulling up in his Cara 4x4, and actually he is the owner of this property. Brian is the guy who is going to give us missions in the beginning of the game. He allows Jason to live in his property for free, but in exchange for Jason's help. What's really important is that I think that our game is going to start in this location. So it's not going to start in Vice City and it won't be in Port Gellhorn. It's gonna be starting in Leonida Keys. So as you can see, after talking to Brian, Jason is actually doing what Brian asked him to do. To go and help him with local shakedowns, to get money out of his tenants. He went to that souvenir store where he took the money from the guy working there. Now let's move to the interesting. Jason picking up Lucia from jail. He has a short hair without a beard, and then the scene that we see the next where they're on a bed in the safe house that we saw in the very beginning. It's the house that Brian is letting Jason stay in. And as you can see, Lucia has an ankle monitor. Jason has a short hair, and it's probably happening almost right after he picked her up from a jail. And obviously it's the beginning of the game, because Lucia is not going to be imprisoned in the middle or in the end of the game. Therefore, we can make out that this is likely our first safe house located in Leonida Keys. Then we can see Lucia and Jason robbing a bank, and it's probably the same scene as in this clip that you can see Raul Batista in. And they are obviously in Vice City, and I think it's happening in the middle of the game or even later, because we're definitely not getting into all the heat in the center of Vice City in the beginning of the game. It's just safe to assume. Then we can see Jason loading some baggage onto a dodo plane, which is probably some type of drugs, more likely cocaine and bricks, and it's all happening in Brian's boat works. And we can actually see Brian standing, observing them working. Then we see Lucia picking up garbage. It's Lucia because she's wearing a hat saying Brian Boat Works, and she also has a golden necklace with a glove. She has an ankle monitor being observed by a policewoman. So I have a theory, because in the next scene we can see Jason and Lucia in the property that Brian owns and they live in it. Lucia is saying the phrase, "It's just the start for us." So it basically heavily implies that this scene and everything that is happening in the beginning of the game, obviously. And I think while Lucia has an ankle monitor doing all that public work, being a good citizen for some time, Jason is working on Brian doing illegal activities. And then the moment comes and Lucia gets the ankle monitor off, maybe in a good way, maybe she just took it off herself, and they started moving bigger. So as I said, in the beginning of the game, something is going to happen. There will be some type of prologue, because let's just take a look at GTA 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2. If you watched all the trailers for those games and all the screenshots, we did not get any hints about having a prologue based in wintertime. In GTA 5 it was North Yankton, in Red Dead Redemption 2 it happened in Rocky Mountains, and there were no hints. So I think that there will be some type of a prologue in GTA 6 as well, where something will be happening. Because we know that Lucia is originally from Liberty City, and she was fighting for her family, which landed her into the Leonida Penitentiary. So somehow she got into the state of Leonida, Vice City, from Liberty City. Maybe the prologue will begin in Liberty City, showing how Lucia moved to Leonida and got to know Jason. They could also do some heist, which made Lucia get into jail. And then the main game starts, where Jason is waiting for her, and while waiting he started working on Brian. We also know that Lucia got out of jail because of sheer luck, so as you can understand, something happened. Over here we can see Jason and Lucia on a yacht. They are very well dressed, they are having fun, and it's happening in Vice City. They could also be scouting or just having some fun time over here, and it could mean that they moved from Leonida Keys. It's not clear, but it's definitely not an early game. I assume that she does not have an anchor monitor in this scene, at least we don't see it. However, it would be silly to go to that luxurious yacht party with an anchor monitor. It would be really weird, but who knows. Then we can see Jason and Lucia sitting in the car, and Jason is saying, if we are going to do this, we are doing it right. So they're probably planning something, and it looks like they are located in Ambrosia region because we can see bikers in the background. This scene is important because we can see Drake One Priest, so it means that we are in Vice City because he is mainly operating in Jack of Hearts strip club with Booby Ike, the owner of that place, and it is, as we know, located in Vice City. Then this is an interesting scene where Lucia is jumping from the window, Jason is helping her. It's happening somewhere in Wisedale County because we can see Wisedale County Police Maverick. And what's important is that Lucia does not have an anchor monitor in this scene, so she already took it off or got it removed because she was a good citizen. It's definitely not an early game because in early game Lucia would probably still have an anchor monitor. Then in the next scene we can see Jason, Brian and his wife Lori in the background talking, and it's happening in Brian's hangar. So once again it's the shot from early game. Over here we can look at a very important scene because look at this. If we go back a bit to the previous scene, Brian is saying to Jason that someone got his name, address and that they got everything on Jason, and in the next scene we get a look at police, and what's particularly interesting is look at this cop. He's definitely not just a regular NPC. He'll be important to the story, and this cop is saying us cops, we gotta protect each other. And in front of us on the left side we can only see an arm of the person, but some people think that Jason could be a cop, and it is actually Jason standing in this scene, but we cannot see him. And in the scene where Drake One Priest was introducing Jason to some people, one of the dudes said, "Yo D, this fool a fed," which once again makes us think that Jason a cop because he used to be in the army, so anything could be possible. But I think it's a bit of a stretch and it would be too obvious. Here we can see Jason and Lucia in their safe house on Leonida Keys, and Jason is saying, "We got this, Lou," and she says, "We got it." It's clear that they're getting ready for some type of a heist, and then we are shown a moment of Lucia shooting from a grenade launcher at 3 police vehicles. It seems that this action is happening somewhere in Vice City, and I don't think that this is the heist that they were getting ready for. I think it's once again in the middle of the game, and it's not gonna be happening in the beginning. Now these two moments where Lucia is fighting some really muscular woman on a plane and they're nearly falling off it, it's definitely not happening in the beginning of the game. And the scene just next to it where we can see a safe being towed on a Bravado pickup truck, it's also happening in Vice City, and it's not an early game. Right here we can see a shot of Phil's ammunition on TV. Jason is sleeping on a couch. It's happening on Leonida Keys in their first safe house. And you can see Lucia coming from public works, judging by the fit she's wearing and the ankle monitor. So it is still an early game that we see right here. And in the next scene, where Jason is flying a helicopter with Brian behind the minigun, they are following an airboat, and it's happening in Grass Rivers. I think it's quite early in the game because Jason is still in the southern area of the map, where Leonida Keys and Grass Rivers are going to be located, and he's still moving with Brian, so it could imply that it's still an early game. Now look at this scene over here. For me it's the hardest scene to make out because it breaks everything. You see Lucia jumping on Jason, and it's happening in a motel which is located in Port Gellhorn that we saw in the leaks, that we saw in the end of the first trailer, and we'll also see it on an artwork. So now we just gotta understand, why does she not have an ankle monitor? Is it happening before we end up in Leonida Keys? Is it a prologue? Or is it sometime later after Leonida Keys? We will get to that later. Once again, this scene is happening in Port Gellhorn. There is some chase going on, we can see Jason on a bike, then he jumps on the car that Lucia is driving. So it's probably the same scene, the same mission, which is happening in Port Gellhorn. I think it's in the middle of the game after Leonida Keys, but still before Vice City. So now let's talk about how the story is going to begin, where we will be playing in the middle of the game and in the end of the game. What is going to happen? We are going to begin on Leonida Keys, but what happens before that? As I said, there is probably going to be some type of a prologue that will tell us how Lucia and Jason got to meet each other and how everything started. We know that Lucia is from Liberty City, so now we just need to understand how she got into Vice City and how she got to meet Jason. I believe there will be some mission that is going to start the game where Jason and Lucia is doing some robbery and everything goes heavily wrong. She gets into prison and Jason somehow gets away with it and lives in the property of Brian in Leonida Keys, waiting for Lucia to get out, or as the description says on the site, sheer luck got her out. So something happened that got her out, we don't know yet. But they already knew each other before that. I'm 100% sure that Leonida Keys is an early game, because in the second trailer Lucia says it's just the start for us, and they have been in that exact safe house on Leonida Keys. It basically gives all the clues. In the majority of the shots she has an anchor monitor, which means it's happening in the early game as well. But in some shots she did not have an anchor monitor, for example the one where she was jumping from the window. Lucia somehow got rid of the anchor monitor, maybe herself or by attending to all the public works, so they took it off her because she was acting good. Now let's move further. What I think is happening in the middle of the game is that they are not going to Vice City, they are going to Port Gellhorn. Because here we can see that Lucia and Jason are in a motel room in Port Gellhorn, judging by this artwork with a bag of money. So they did a heist and now laying low in a cheap motel in Port Gellhorn, and this motel, as I said, appeared multiple times in different trailers and even in the leaks, and in this artwork as well. And Lucia does not have an anchor monitor in the shop. So it either happened before she got into prison, which is unlikely, or more likely happened after they left Leonida Keys and now switched safe houses and living in this motel. Maybe it's somehow connected to the moment in the trailer where Brian said that someone got everything on Jason. That could be the reason why they even left Leonida Keys. So after laying low in that motel for some time, we get to go to Vice City, because then there will be all the big missions where we can see Raul Batista, the character that we'll be contacting with later in the game, when we will have bank robberies like the one we saw in the trailer. All those exciting and crazy missions with the stakes going up are likely happening later in the game, such as fighting on a plane, towing a safe on a truck. Those are not the missions that we are getting in the early game. And later, as they get more connections, they move to Vice City from Port Gellhorn. This is a rough story that I made in my mind. Obviously it might be far from the truth, but the beginning of the game being in Leonida Keys is definitely a fact. Everything else is just speculation, but let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you agree with me or not? If you enjoyed this video, this small story breakdown, leave a like and subscribe. I hope to see you in the next one.